Herman Cain.
Do I need this? Everybody hear me all right? All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, Mama. She and Mike and Chris came to Atlanta for my announcement rally. Look, Mama. So I want you to know that I do appreciate that. I know she doesn't want me to do this, but I would like to thank Diane again for hosting this. And obviously I want to thank Jack for not only talking about the organization, but also for the introduction. And Jack is right. Before Jack was a big shot chairman, we met and we instantly hit it off. And we've been friends ever since because we share a lot of the same values, a lot of the same beliefs. So Jack, thank you for that introduction. And I see a lot of familiar faces here that I have seen at other events. Patrice, Sue, and others. And I know I'm going to miss someone, but it's always great to see people who come back to hear me a second and a third and a fourth time because they're either coming back because they like what I said or they're coming back until I get it right. So I'll let you decide which one that is. But I would also like to add my personal reflection on those that paid the ultimate price for this nation to allow us the freedom that we enjoy. We had our founding fathers. They did their job. We must never forget the defenders that are no longer with us. The defenders that are still in uniform because this world is not safe. And so my challenge to many of the audiences that I speak to is we must be the defending fathers of this nation and of those values that we cherish that allowed us to be able to enjoy the freedom that we enjoy. Because you see, freedom is under attack in this country in many ways. And we have to be the ones to change the direction of this country. We have to be the ones to make sure that we don't give up those liberties. I didn't say don't give up those liberties without a fight. We're going to have to fight, and we're going to win that fight. That's why I'm in this fight. Diane asked me when I first got here, she said, we had a chance to chat, so what's been happening? What have you been doing? I said, well, number one, I was in a little debate that turned out okay. And the night of the debate, I couldn't tell, nobody on that stage could tell how we were coming across. And when I went back in my green room, and the first thing I saw was that Frank Luntz focus group, I was shocked. And I think a lot of other people were shocked in terms of what the impression was that they got. The commentators that were asking the questions, they really didn't know either. They sort of felt like it was sort of, there was nobody who stood out. But you see, they represent part of the problem that we have. There's a disconnect between establishment reporters, not the ones that are here tonight. Let's be nice. The establishment and people in Washington, D.C. is a disconnect between how they see this country and how regular folk like you and me see this country. I see it all the time, and the disconnect is getting bigger and bigger. Let me give you an example. I was in New Orleans with my wife for the past week for a conference that she was attending, and this was a conference that for the first time in a long time, she had to go to meetings and I was just spouse. And I had a ball working in, just working in the room, and I didn't have to go to the meetings. So we didn't get back home until about 11:30 yesterday, which was Sunday, and I had a 1 o'clock interview with the Washington Post. They flew a reporter from Washington to meet me at that time because I said, you can either meet me in Atlanta or you can meet me in New Hampshire. I'm going to be there 2 days. I'm going to be in Washington. No, they were anxious to do this story. I said, fine, then I'll do it on Sunday. And the first question that he asked, well, Mr. Cain, there's a lot of excitement about you, and you're moving up in the polls. Why do people like you? Now, I wanted to say that's a stupid question, but I didn't say that. I said, well, let me tell you what people tell me. They like my common sense solution. I try to make it plain in terms of what we need to do. We don't need rocket science to fix a lot of our problems. We need common sense in order to fix a lot of our problems. I say, I think that's resonating with people when I talk about all of the different ones. I said, number two, I think they like my passion because they know that I truly believe in this country, and I truly believe that we can turn things around and we can change things. And the other thing that I believe that is resonating with people is that they like the fact that I'm not a politician who has ever held public office. The people in the establishment, they don't get that. This particular reporter reluctantly, he said, really? I said, go ask him. I said, have you been to a Tea Party? Have you been to one of these Americans for Tax Reform, Americans for Prosperity rallies? Go ask them. The problem with them is that they are out of touch. What I have been doing for months is, this isn't my first time here. You all know that. I've been here. This is number 13, which is my lucky number. I'm born on the 13th, so I don't see that as an unlucky number. Look how lucky I got today with all these people who came out. I thought this is my lucky day. And so they don't get it, folks. They don't really understand this groundswell of citizens' Tea Party support and this movement that's going on across this country. And I tell the establishment people all the time, don't worry, you're not going to pick the next president of the United States of America. The people are going to pick the next president of America. But they still don't get it. My weekly commentary, which you can find on my website, hermancain.com, it's entitled, Dear Skeptics and Critics, because Karl Rove referred to me on one of the Fox programs as the radio talk show guy from Atlanta who's not really a serious candidate. So, Jack, I felt an obligation to respond to him in print. And I basically said that Mr. Rove obviously doesn't see what a lot of other people see, and that is taking business principles to Washington, D.C. might actually help things. But he doesn't get it yet. And then Mr. Charles Krauthammer, who is one of the most thoughtful political analysts. I do like Charles. He's one of the most thoughtful people. Usually he's right. But he referred to my candidacy as, quote, entertainment. So I felt obligated to respond to him in print. And I think you enjoyed the article. My point is this. They don't get it yet. And you know what? They probably won't until you all are there when I'm being sworn in as president. Let me talk a little bit about my position on some of the issues. Some of you heard. I'm going to go through real quick, and then I'm going to open it up to questions because I would rather hear what you have to say. And by the way, my wife of 42 years is not here today with me because she cannot physically handle the strains and the stresses of campaign travel. She has a implanted heart device that has been working very well. She has limited activity, but she can't possibly do what I'm doing or it would kill her. And I said, I don't want to kill her. You won't see her on the campaign trail with me. She will be at selected events.
She'll be in the White House.
Oh yeah, she'll be in the White House.
Oh, you got a picture of her wall?
Pardon? I'll have to bring one the next time. I got too many other things. That's a good idea. I'm going to carry a picture around and sit it on the table.
I bet I have one right here.
Yeah, he probably has one. That's right. That's right, because he was at the event and he got a chance to see him. This nation, one of the reasons that I'm running, which is what I share with reporters and I share with audiences, is because this nation has become a nation of crises. We got a moral crisis, an economic crisis, an entitlement spending crisis, an energy crisis, an immigration crisis. We've got a foreign policy crisis. Foggy foreign policy. Does anybody in here know why we are in all of these countries? And we have a deficiency of leadership crisis. A severe deficiency of leadership crisis. And in the little booklet, Common Sense Solutions, I talk about some of the ideas and the approaches that I and my team would use in order to solve some of these problems. I am running for president to fix stuff, not put it off, not to compromise where it just continues to get worse. Let me just talk about one of them, energy, for example. And it's in there, but I'll talk about any ones that you want me to talk about. Because if we finish early, then we can eat some more and have a good time. This is supposed to be a Memorial Day party. Let's just talk about the energy situation. We have enough resources to become energy independent. We've got oil, we got coal, we got shale oil, we've got natural gas. The Congressional Research Service has documented the fact if we were smart enough to pull all of our energy resources together, we could be energy independent for 50 years. But that's probably not going to happen because we can't pull them all together that quick. So that's the good news. We've got plenty of resources. But we never had a plan to take advantage of those resources. And one of the things that I plan to do, which I've already started on, is to develop an energy independence plan and announce it to the world. As soon as we announce it to the world, speculators are going to stop speculating up and they're going to speculate down. And we won't be at the mercy of King Abdullah and the boys. OPEC. It is not only a matter of economics because oil drives the price of gasoline. Gasoline is now hovering around $4 a gallon. When it reaches the national average of around $4 a gallon, that's what's called the tipping point, which means that most Americans are not able to buy gas for their cars to go to work or to take kids to school without pulling it out of another discretionary item. And that at that tipping point, the higher it goes past $4 a gallon, the more downward pressure it puts on what little economic growth we have. And right now it is anemic. Just in the first quarter it was on 1.8%. 1.8%. Compare that to China is growing at 10%. Compounded. Even though it's on a much smaller base. So not only is it an economic threat, it is also a national security threat. Because what do you think China's going to do if their economy becomes as big as ours, which on a one-to-one basis, they're going to be as big as us in about 15 years. But if you take out the differences in exchange rates, they're going to be as big as us in 5 years in terms of what they call purchasing power parity. 5 years. What do you think the Chinese are going to do with all of that extra economy and all of that extra money that they can confiscate from their workers if they want to, because they still are a communist country? Military. They want a military as capable as ours. They want a nuclear arsenal as big and as powerful as ours. So it becomes a national security threat. Oil and energy is also a national security threat. I bet you hadn't heard many people running for office that break it down like this. Here's why. There was an article today by a Saudi prince who said, I read the article, they want to increase the supply so you can drive down the price of oil, so you can drive down the price of gasoline, quote, such that the United States and Europe will not look for alternative sources of developing their own energy. We are at their mercy because we have not been forward acting enough to develop the resources we have here. And so when President Obama went to Brazil, y'all heard about that, huh? Loaned them $2 billion or $4 billion, our money, and tells them that we are going, America is going to be Brazil's best customer for oil. Let me tell you what the Cain doctrine is. America is going to be its own best customer for oil because we're going to drill here. The reporter from Washington Post, he was asking me, he said, well, Mr. Cain, how are you going to get that done? Why aren't they doing it now? They don't want to. That's right. Pure and simple. I believe that this administration wants us to be dependent upon other people around the world, because I happen to believe that this administration and others want a weaker America. The people out here do not want a weaker America. He said, well, what are you going to do in order to accelerate development of drilling for oil here in this country and accelerate the development of shale oil and all of these other things? Well, first of all, the EPA is the biggest barrier. I'm going to put together what I call my Regulatory Reduction Commission. I'm going to do one for the EPA, I'm going to do one for the Interior Department, and any other department that's going... Education, we may not need a commission for that one. Unbundle it. And here's who's going to sit on that commission. Let me first tell you about one of my management principles. If you want to know the solution to a problem, go talk to the people closest to the problem. So on my EPA Regulatory Reduction Commission, I am going to appoint people that have been abused by the EPA. If you want to know what we need to do to speed up the permitting process, to speed up the exploration process, go to the people who have been abused. Shale oil was abused a few weeks ago. They spent $2 billion, $4 billion. Thanks, Skip. They spent $4 billion off the coast of Alaska, doing that work to basically get ready to drill. And then this administration said at the last minute, we're not going to give you the permit because the fumes from your drilling might impact a small town 70 miles away with 200 people. They didn't want to do it in the first place. Somebody said, well, what would you do if your environmental protection agency said you shouldn't do it because there's going to be some damage to that town of 200 people? Move them! Think about this. Now, I don't have a problem. First of all, I would make sure, I would want to look at the science. I would want somebody to convince me that, in fact, the people were going to be harmed by that. But you and I know that sometimes they can make up stuff to prove what it is they want to do. I would say, show me the science.
Yes.
And if the science said, in fact, that was going to be the case, move them.
Right.
We can find places for them. Send them to Arizona. But my point is this. We need common sense. We need some common sense relative to energy, entitlement spending, and all of these other programs. One of my other guiding principles. We can no longer reshuffle programs. We've got to restructure programs. Let's take Social Security. The biggest one we got. I believe that the solution is the same solution that the country of Chile put in place 30 years ago. They offered an optional personal retirement account. Optional personal retirement accounts. Here's how it worked. This is how much money people were putting into their Social FICA payroll tax fund. Their rate wasn't 15.3%, which is what we paid. It had gotten to 27%. And it was still going bankrupt. So, what they did, and a fellow by the name of Jose Ferrara, who used to work at the Cato Institute, was the one who helped implement the plan. I have met him. He'd written a book on it. It's brilliant. So what they did was they said, okay, you're putting 27% into your payroll account. Well, you have the option to put a portion of it in a personal retirement account with your name on it. But you still got to help fund this one because some people are already on Social Security. Some people are too close to Social Security. So you're going to have to help pay for this one while you have your personal retirement account. And you will be allowed to invest it conservatively in some vehicles where it will grow. In 3 years, 90% of the people opted to go with the personal retirement account. And today, they have one of the best retirement systems because it's individual accounts in the world. We can do the same thing. Now, somebody said President George Bush tried it and it didn't work. With all due respect, I'm not President George Bush. You got to sell it to the people. You got to explain it to the people. Another one of my guiding principles, if the people understand it, they will demand it. They will support it. Because in President Bush's case, his Republican colleagues didn't support him in trying to sell it and explain it. They put him out there on that limb and allowed that limb to crack. And he didn't have the time or the communication skills, in all honesty, to explain it to the American people and make it a priority. So it got demagogued. The liberals called it privatization. President Obama has already said that in looking at solutions for the Social Security program, quote, privatization is off the table. Good, because we're not talking about privatization. We're talking about personalization. Personalization. When you start to explain to people that it's an account with your name on it, that they can't take away, they get that. People get that. And so, whether you're talking about Social Security, whether you're talking about Medicare, we've got to restructure programs, not reshuffle them. Let's talk about Medicare real quick. Because see, if we don't restructure those programs, we're never going to get our handle around this whole spending thing of $14 trillion. Medicare. Representative Paul Ryan from Wisconsin led the Republicans in the House to put together a budget proposal that truly does reduce the deficit, reduces the national debt without raising taxes.